All right, so today we're diving into a book that's been making waves, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. You got a chance to check it out.
Oh yeah, I actually just finished it. It's one of those books that really gets you thinking differently about, well, pretty much everything to do with money.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about the nuts and bolts of investing.
Yeah.
It's about the psychology behind the decisions we make with money.
Exactly. And Housel is such a great storyteller. He brings these really interesting characters to life and their relationships with money are so fascinating.
Yeah, like that story about the tech executive who, was part of designing Wi-Fi routers. Super smart guy, right?
Yeah.
You'd think he'd have it all figured out.
You would think. But it turns out he was actually really insecure about his wealth. I mean, the guy would walk around with like wads of cash.
Yeah, I remember that part.
Mhm.
He bragged about his spending, and there was that crazy story about him throwing money at a hotel manager.
Seriously. It just goes to show that, intelligence and financial success aren't always one and the same.
Totally. It's like, what does it even mean to be good with money? Is it about making the right investments, or is it more about having a healthy relationship with wealth?
That's the question, right? And that's what I love about this book. It really challenges a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, it's not just giving you a bunch of financial tips. It's like digging deeper into the psychology that drives our behavior.
And then there's the story of Ronald Reid, the janitor, who ended up amassing this huge fortune. Talk about a contrast in personalities.
I know, right? He was all about frugality and patience. Just quietly saved his money, invested it wisely, and let compounding work its magic over decades.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that slow and steady can win the race. It's not always about getting rich quick.
Definitely. Makes you think about the importance of long-term thinking and, delayed gratification.
It also makes you wonder, like, what were the psychological traits that allowed him to be so successful? Could anyone cultivate those habits?
Right, that's the big question, isn't it? Like, what really separates those who thrive financially from those who struggle, even if they have similar levels of intelligence or opportunity?
And it's not always about making the objectively right financial decisions. It's about understanding our own biases and tendencies and learning how to manage them.
I think Housel talks about the role of luck, too, right? Like, sometimes it's just being in the right place at the right time.
Oh, yeah. He uses the example of Bill Gates.
Mhm.
Bill Gates was brilliant and ambitious, for sure, but he also happened to go to one of the only high schools with a computer back in the 60s.
Wow. So that gave him a huge head start in the tech industry.
Exactly. It just goes to show that, circumstances beyond our control can play a big role.
It's a good reminder to stay humble.
Absolutely. But also to be open to opportunities when they come along.
One of the things that really struck me about this book is how it challenges the traditional way we think about financial advice.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's not enough to just tell people what to do. You
Yeah.
have to help them understand why they do what they do.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like we wouldn't treat a broken leg with medical techniques from 100 years ago. So why are we still using outdated thinking when it comes to personal finance?
Housel talks about how so much financial advice feels stuck in the past, save 10%, invest in index funds. But it doesn't always address those deeper psychological barriers that keep people from actually following that advice.
Yeah, like even if, you should be saving more, it's not always easy to do in practice, especially with all the pressures to spend, spend, spend.
That's where understanding your own financial psychology comes in, recognizing those internal conflicts and figuring out how to manage them.
I think that's what makes this book so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just about the numbers. It's about the stories, the emotions, the human element of money,
Totally. It's about understanding ourselves and our relationship with money.
which ultimately can lead to better financial decisions.
And hopefully a more fulfilling life. And it's not always about making, like, the objectively right decision, It's
Yeah.
about understanding their biases and learning how to work with them. Housel brings up all these studies, like there's one by Malmendier and Nagel.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
It found that people's willingness to take risks is more influenced by their personal history
Yeah.
than, like, their intelligence or education.
It's so interesting.
Like, someone who grew up during hyperinflation
Right.
might be really scared of bonds,
Totally.
while someone who's only experienced stable prices might see them as super safe.
Makes sense.
It's like we all have this financial lens
Yeah.
shaped by our past experiences.
That's a great way to put it.
And it can be tough to change that lens.
Even when, the data suggests something different.
Exactly. One thing that really resonated with me was this idea of enough.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when is it enough?
It's easy to get caught in that trap of wanting more and more.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
Housel uses the example of Rajat Gupta.
Oh, yeah, he was the businessman.
Super successful, but he got involved in insider trading.
It's like he had it all.
But it was never enough.
Such a cautionary tale.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to define your own version of success.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And to think about what truly matters.
Right, because then your financial decisions can actually align with your values.
It makes so much sense.
And speaking of values, remember that part about Warren Buffett?
Oh, yeah, the compounding thing.
It just blows my mind that he accumulated most of his wealth after he turned 50.
It really shows the power of patience.
And long-term thinking.
Yeah, compounding is like that snowball effect.
It just keeps growing and growing.
But you have to give it time.
Exactly. Our brains are wired for instant gratification.
Right. We want results now.
But with investing, it's often that slow and steady approach.
Yeah, that really pays off in the end.
You know, one of the things I appreciate about this book is that it's not just about the numbers.
Right.
It's about the stories and the emotions.
It's the human side of money.
Exactly. It makes it so much more relatable.
Yeah, that's why it's resonated with so many people.
It helps us understand ourselves and our relationship with money.
Which ultimately can lead to better decisions and a more fulfilling life. It's so interesting, all this stuff about our psychology and money. But how do we actually, apply it to our own lives?
That's the big question, isn't it? And honestly, I don't think there's one magic answer.
Right.
But I think a good place to start is just being more aware.
Okay.
Start noticing how you feel when you're dealing with money, whether you're spending or saving or investing.
So it's kind of like a mindfulness practice.
Exactly. What are those thoughts and emotions that come up?
Yeah.
Are you excited? Scared? Maybe a little guilty?
Yeah, I can see that.
Once you're more aware of those feelings, you can start to make more intentional choices.
That makes sense.
It's about recognizing those patterns and biases that might be holding you back.
It's like taking control instead of letting your emotions control you.
Exactly. And I think that's a really powerful message in this book.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect with money.
Right.
We all make mistakes.
For sure.
The key is to learn from them and keep moving forward.
It's almost like Housel's giving us permission to be human.
I think so. He gets that money is a messy subject.
Definitely.
There's no one right way to do it.
Right. It's different for everyone.
Exactly. So it's about figuring out what works for you.
Based on your own situation and your own psychology.
Exactly. It takes time and experimentation.
Yeah. It's not a quick fix.
It's more like an ongoing journey.
Well, I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of this book.
I know, right? There's so much to unpack.
But hopefully this has given our listeners a little taste.
Yeah, maybe pique their curiosity.
To dive in and learn more.
Definitely. It's one of those books that makes you think differently about money.
Yeah, it really stays with you.
And who knows, maybe it'll even inspire some positive changes.
Absolutely. So if you're interested in exploring the psychology of money,
we highly recommend checking out The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
As you're reading, pay attention to what stands out to you.
What resonates with your own experience?
And most importantly,
what inspires you to take action?
Because at the end of the day,
it's about creating a richer, more fulfilling life.
Well said. I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
This was great. Until next time.